Okay, class, I wanted to just give you some quick tips on putting your PowerPoints together. And I'm using the same PowerPoint that I used in the introductory video that I made. Hopefully you've already watched that one. And so you got to be careful with certain things when it comes to, like when you put together your PowerPoint for MoveNote. Now this only applies to when you are going to upload your PowerPoint to MoveNote. Of course, you're going to put it together first, and then you have to save it. But there are some things you need to know before you send it and you upload it to MoveNote. Otherwise, you'll have to come right back to PowerPoint and fix certain things. So, for example, like a background. You want to, for the most part, I would just stick with just a plain white background. You can get away with this. Again, if you saw that video in MoveNote that I did in MoveNote, we could clearly see this. But what happens oftentimes is that when you upload your PowerPoint to MoveNote, a lot of stuff will shift around. So I'm going to go to this next slide, especially when it comes to pictures. You want to keep the pictures as far away from the text as possible and keep them small. Don't make them large. I don't want to see this because a lot of times what happens is, I'm making this big on purpose, I'll see this, like if I move something, if I put a smaller picture over here on the right hand side and I got my text on the left or vice versa, MoveNote will bring them together. Like when you upload it, and you'll see it when you get in there and you start going from slide to slide. I don't want to see this happen. Don't be sloppy with your work. Teachers should be organized, should be very detail-oriented. So I want you to recognize and see things like that. And if you see a misspelled word, you have to fix it. Okay, so if I were you, I would stick with a blank background. If you want to try to go with some kind of background, test it to check and make sure it's going to work. I can tell you right now, a picture background will not work at all. Like a color, just a plain color background, I think what happens in MoveNote is it will just take that color and turn it to white. You can try it to see, but that I can pretty much guarantee you that's going to happen. So again, you can try certain things and see what happens when you upload it in there, and then go through the slides in MoveNote to see if it'll work. Okay, so like I said, I tend to stick with just plain backgrounds when it comes to MoveNote. This is the only time I would say something like this. So if you remember from the intro video, I did have something like this. This actually worked. The background showed up. My text was fine. This is kind of like an overlay here of the text, and that works. So just so you'll know, and yes, you can include pictures like I said, but make sure you make them smaller and then move them over further away from your text. Don't have your picture real close to the text. Otherwise, MoveNote will just shift it and move it right on top of your text. So be careful, make your bullet points short, okay? No more than maybe 7 words per bullet point, maybe no more than 4 or 5 bullet points per slide, or something along those lines is fine. It's called PowerPoint, not Power Paragraph. It doesn't mean that you can't put in like a short verse. Everything should have purpose, okay? Don't just stick a verse on a slide just to stick it in there. Everything should have purpose. So yeah, I want to see more bullet points than I see paragraphs. If you got to use a paragraph, it needs to be short. Avoid lengthy paragraphs. And don't just simply sit and read and look at the camera, just read from your slides and you don't elaborate at all. Okay, you have to actually teach the class. So you're following, remember, the hook, book, look, took. You don't have to include the hook on a slide, okay? Unless you got like a picture that's your hook and you want to use it as an illustration. But if you're just sharing an illustration, I would simply just stick with just staying on that first slide, and then you introduce your topic and you're talking about your topic, and then you have your transition statement, and then you move to bullet point 1. Okay, and so that's just something that I wanted to show you as it relates to PowerPoint. There is one other piece that I do want to bring up that kind of brings it a little bit closer to home. Let's see. And this is something that I did with Up with the Sun. So I'm going to make this full screen just so you can see it. And so I want you to see, oh, one more thing, no animation. You cannot use animation. I knew I was leaving something out. Avoid using animation because MoveNote doesn't support it. So don't even add animation to your PowerPoint. Okay, so here's one that I did with Up with the Sun, the TV show. And just to give you an idea, these stats that I talk about as it relates to burnout proofing your ministry, basically, yeah, I bring in a sentence and I talk about it. I'm talking about this sentence. Now, yes, this did come in as an animated, as animated text, but, FYI, don't use it as it relates to MoveNote. It does not support it. So this was my hook coming in, and this is still part of the hook, and I'm talking about the stats. And then I explain what burnout is. It's kind of my transition. And then I start with Exodus 18. I did tell the audience the verses that I was going to be dealing with, but I only dealt with the verses one by one, not necessarily reading all of them. Notice I got a picture here, and this will work. Like I said, you have to go and upload it into MoveNote to see what is it going to look like. Does anything shift around if I put a picture in here? So I'm just kind of cycling through here so you can see it. And then I'll talk about the symptoms of burnout, solutions of burnout. These are my key points. I put a little picture there. And then let me take this out so you can see what I did. So I'm going to give them a quick overview of point number one and then my sub points here. And then what I did was I went to the next slide, and now I just want them to focus on just that. I didn't use animation for this, by the way. I just simply took this slide, copied, pasted, and took out B and C, and then I went to the next slide. And then you'll see how it just increases. See, now I got B on that one, and then I'm going to the next slide, and now I have C. I'm not using animation. And this is the edit side of PowerPoint anyway. This is not how you should display PowerPoint to your audience. It should be in slideshow. But you don't have to worry about that because you're uploading this to MoveNote. So I'm just trying to give you something or give you an idea of how this can work, where you can bring your bullet points in one by one. You just have them on different slides where you're adding an extra bullet point each time. You see what I'm saying? And so, because the idea is to get the audience to focus on the bullet point that you're talking about, as opposed to having all three of them out at once. And so you can pretty much follow that same pattern, over and over for each point until you get to the end. So let me keep going. So here's my review. So I review my points, my main points, my sub points, and then I give them question and assignment, and then you can always add an evaluation at the end. And so that, hopefully, that will help you to understand how to put together your PowerPoints. Remember, keep the background blank if at all possible. You can try to see what will happen, what works, what doesn't work. You want your bullet points to be short. Don't use animation. No misspelled words. Pictures are fine, but be careful. Keep them small and move them away from your text. Avoid lengthy paragraphs. Don't just simply read from your PowerPoint. You need to interact with the PowerPoint, interact with the audience. You will be in the role of a teacher. So just like I'm talking to you as if you are right here with me, that's what I want you to do. So those are the tips that I wanted to give you for PowerPoint. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, email those questions to me. And I hope to chat with you soon.